Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video is going to continue the connecting of dots and to try to illustrate better than I have in previous videos the maritime law pyramid. It's a very steep pyramid of command and control known as Admiralty law. It's a military concept, people. It's the law of the sea, the law of the maritime establishment. In other words, the captain is the master of the ship, which is at sea, and we follow orders or people die. That's a military concept. That's the concept that the United States of America exists under. There is no Constitution. There is no Bill of Rights. There never was. The only place you're going to hear about the Bill of Rights and the concept of constitutional law or the law of the land, the only place you're ever going to hear about that is in an indoctrination center known as the public school system or parochial school, Roman Catholic, or other private college preparatory program school academies, which are all military designed complexes to promote the concept of obedience, secrecy, world mission, but it's more obedience. Obedience surpasses everything else. If you want to be a nun in the Sacred Heart Order or the Holy Cross congregation, or you want to be in the Holy Names Society, or you want to be a Jesuit priest, you always take an oath of chastity and poverty and obedience. Those three are standard in all Roman Catholic orders. Those three. The Jesuits add a fourth called world mission. I call that Agenda 21. I call that cult ritual masking. I call that do as I say, not necessarily as I do. World pacification control. That's what the Jesuits do. But the rest of them, even the Sacred Heart convent, they take oath of obedience, chastity, and poverty, which means they're virtually controlled in the way that if you joined Jim Jones and People's Temple and then were sent to Jonestown, you are effectively a member of the Sacred Heart Order because you have no money and you're separated from your family, so you don't have any choice, right? I mean, you're stuck. You're in a prison camp. So you can behave and be obedient and have meals served 3 times a day. That's how that works. Don't you know what a cult is? That is a cult. The Society of the Sacred Heart Order, formed in the French Revolution in the 1790s, officially rolled out in 1800, but they were operating before that. And nuns had daggers. The nuns had daggers under their Wizard of Oz, Wicked Witch of the East, Wicked Witch of the West habits. That's what they called their ridiculous black dresses. Habits. It's a habit that I want nothing to do with. I had 9 years of indoctrination in parochial school with the Society of the with the Society of the Holy Names. And I had family members that were indoctrinated within the Society of the Sacred Heart Order, which is a military industrial indoctrination center and is always in close proximity to military bases like the San Francisco Presidio, right? Home to the United States Army, home to Letterman Hospital, bioweapons laboratory, close proximity to Fort Baker, Sausalito, bioweapons laboratory, close to Fort Cronkite, Sausalito, with tunnel and missile systems and secret compartments within the mountain of the Marin Headlands. I want to emphasize that Marin gets a kind of a pass, right? Marin County, north of the Golden Gate Bridge, Marin County, home to Fort Baker, home to Fort Cronkite, home to Tiburon, Corte Madera, home to Nicasio and the George Lucas Skywalker Ranch, 4,700 acres of land that he could never in a million years afford to buy. 4,700 acres. And the Bohemian Grove, which is the next county adjacent to Marin County, is Sonoma County. The Bohemian Grove is only 2,700 acres. So how would George Lucas from Modesto Junior College, Modesto, a little farming town in Central California, how the heck could he get to USC, be an intern program, work for Warner Brothers, produce, and I mean direct THX 1138 at age 25, and film the murder of Meredith Hunter, age 18, at the Department of Energy property, also known as the Altamont Speedway free concert on December 8th, 1969, with Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones on the stage playing Sympathy for the Devil as Meredith Walker is bayoneted in darkness off stage, and Meredith Hunter is wearing a Dumb and Dumber tuxedo. So he's targeted, right? That's so that the killer, whoever the killer was, got away. No one was ever convicted of that crime. There was a 21-year-old Hells Angel who was arrested and arraigned for murder of Meredith Hunter, but his defense lawyer was none other than Melvin Belli. You know, the guy who lives on Broadway in close proximity to the Sacred Heart Academy Convent at 2222 Broadway. He's neighbors with Enos Mejia, Abigail Folger's mother, private banker for San Francisco CIA, and in close proximity to the infamous hammer attack, the styrofoam hammer that never harmed Paul Pelosi Sr. at 2640 Broadway. That's, what is that, 3 blocks from the Sacred Heart Convent, Roman Catholic Indoctrination Center, where a Jewish girl by the name of Feinstein/Goldman/Diane attended. A little Jewish girl went to a very strict Roman Catholic military industrial academy in close proximity to the Presidio Army base, because right where the Pelosi hammer attack didn't happen, just 1 block from there is easement onto the Army base. It's been decommissioned. You know, today there are 32 military bases in the state of California, if you wanted to call it a state, a provisional property. It used to be called Alta California. Anyway, there's 32 military bases in our state. That's more than the average military bases of a typical United States province. But I'm here to tell you that we used to have more. We used to have that Army Presidio in San Francisco. We used to have Fort Baker in Marin County. We used to have Fort Cronkite. Those have all been decommissioned. We used to have El Toro Marine Air Base in Orange County near Santiago Canyon and Trabuco Canyon on El Toro Road. But that's all been converted into upscale real estate residential housing. So that went bye-bye the way the dodo bird. Lee Oswald was stationed at El Toro Air Base for the Marines when he was 18 years old, before they sent him to Lockheed's U-2 spy pilot program in Asugi, Japan. That's right. The man who didn't murder John Kennedy was a United States Marine recruited into the CIA. That's right. And he worked in Orange County at El Toro Marine Air Base, which is a beautiful place. Spectacular. Anyway, I'm just saying that was decommissioned, so that went bye-bye. It's not part of the 32 that I'm telling you are in existence today. So you could balloon it up. I mean, we probably had over 40. Remember, Father Junipero Serra's Spanish colonization of Alta California installed 21 missions that Father Junipero Serra participated in about, 7 of the 21, and then he went back to wherever he's from. And those were Spanish outposts. First in San Diego, which everybody knows, that's where Ron DeSantis got his Office of Naval Intelligence training in Coronado Island there in San Diego, California. Ron DeSantis, after he finished Yale University and Harvard Law School, he then went into the United States Marines, sent to San Diego, CIA San Diego, the first mission of Father Junipero Serra, which was converted into the OSS and now CIA San Diego. And that's where Ron DeSantis, got some ONI training. Then he was sent to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, which the United States Navy and Marines have controlled Cuba since 1898, since Remember the Maine in February 1988, where a United States military ship was sunk in the harbor of Havana, home to Jose Menendez, home to Jose Perdomo, the man who murdered John Lennon, home to Frank Sturgis, Not his real name, Frank Finorini, an Italian from Philadelphia. But his home was Havana, Cuba, where he befriended Fidel Castro, who is a CIA lifetime operative. And Frank Finorini is a lifetime CIA operative. And there they all are in Havana, Cuba. Jose Menendez at age 16. Jose Perdomo at age 25 and chief of police of a city in Cuba. And Fidel Castro, who's a little older, and Frank Finorini, who's about 32, 33 years old, and Fidel Castro is about his age. And there they all are, all four of them. All four of those knuckleheads are in Havana, Cuba, and only one of them stays because you got Jose Perdomo is personal friends with General Batista, who's the fascist capitalist, and Jose Menendez's parents are palsy-walsy with the Batista regime. And of course, the evil Fidel Castro is a graduate of University of Havana, so he's friendly too, except he's supposed to become a communist, because that's what the CIA said he was supposed to do. So Fidel Castro switched sides. It's the same side. It's the same side. Just replace your white coat with the black coat so you can be a boogeyman. And then we'll have Frank Finorini. He'll come to Miami, Florida in 1959, along with Jose Menendez, who gets shotgun blasted to death in his Beverly Hills, not his home, 722 Elm Drive, Nightmare on Elm Street, except it's Elm Drive, North Elm Drive, 722 North Elm Drive, home to Michael Jackson, home to Elton John, home to Jose and Kitty Menendez for a few months, if that, because they lived in Calabasas, 25 minutes north, near West Hills, near Encino, near Canoga Park, porn center. Jose Menendez was an executive for RCA in the porn business, and then he switched teams to go work for the off-books producer of porn, Noam Bloom, Caballero Gentlemen's Entertainment, renamed Live Entertainment. These are Oliver Stone's partners. Oliver Stone knows Mario Casar and Andrew Vodka, not his real name. His real name is Andras Weidman. So I'm telling you that they ran a porn operation. And it was confusing because we had Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator 2 in there. We had Sylvester Stallone's Rambo 1 and 2 was co-produced by these knuckleheads that I just mentioned their names, Andrew Vodka, and not his real name, and Mario Casar got production credit for Rambo 1 and 2, Terminator 2, Wall Street, scratch that. Michael Douglas in Basic Instinct, they got production credit for that. They got production credit for Field of Dreams, and Oliver Stone's film The Doors on the Jim Morrison CIA story, because Jim Morrison's father was OSS CIA trained, and the Bay of Tonkin fake incident that never happened. George Morrison, Jim Morrison's father, was a rear admiral in the United States Navy, and he's the one that phoned in the fake incident to create the basis for the Bay of Tonkin resolution, which resulted in a 10-year war of Vietnam, known as Vietnam. Even though they didn't call it Vietnam, they called it 47 provisional provinces for Asian people that the French attempted to indoctrinate in the same way that Alta California was indoctrinated through the Roman Catholic Church, right? French colonialism preceded the Vietnam War. Anyway, I don't know if Oliver Stone's movie The Doors included that part of history, which includes Yoko Ono's father. In case you didn't know, Yoko Ono was from elite banking nobility class in Tokyo, Japan. Her father was transferred to San Francisco, OSS San Francisco before it was CIA San Francisco. And there's Yoko Ono's father as a private banker working in San Francisco, before Paul Pelosi was, before Enos Mejia was. We had Yoko Ono's father in San Francisco doing God knows what kind of banking. Then he was returned to Tokyo, and then he was dispatched to Hanoi. You remember Hanoi is where the communists live in North Vietnam? That's where the Roman Catholics lived. They had 70% of the population of Vietnam was Buddhist, but it was a very high concentration of Roman Catholics in North Vietnam, which is Hanoi. And that is where Yoko Ono's father had an office, which is in close proximity to Burma, Burma, or Malamar, whatever they call it now. It's a CIA drug dealing facility known as the Opium Production Center in the mountains, because opium grows in landlocked areas and requires air transport or road transportation to get the opium processed into heroin, and then it needs to go to a port facility where it can be transferred to the major urban cities of the world, where pacification and control is the objective, the primary objective. And that is the objective of colonialism. It's to infiltrate, not invade. Remember, it's infiltration by night, guerrillas by night, not armies by day, right? Infiltration, not invasion. Intimidation, not free choice. That's colonialism. That's a military concept. That falls under maritime law. That applies to the French Indonesia, Vietnam. That applies to Guatemala. That applies to Honduras. That applies to Mexico. That applies to Alta California. That applies to CIA California. That applies to CIA San Francisco. All right? That's what we're talking about. So to be absurdly brief and to delete most of the real history, I'll just say that the Spanish invasion of the New World, which eventually was showcased by the Jesuits, and who followed the Franciscans, because the Franciscan order of Father Junipero Serra was the one who came north from Mexico and established the San Diego mission number 1 of 21. And then they proceeded north until eventually they got to Sonoma, which was the last mission, which was established in 1823. The first mission, which was San Diego, which is where Ron DeSantis got indoctrinated into Navy intelligence so that he could eventually become a fake governor of Florida. And then someday he wants to be a fake president of the United States if he can possibly take over from the highly acute and skilled Sleepy Joe Biden, or the obtuse Kamala Harris, who went to the Hastings Law School, across the street from where George Moscone got his head blown off so that Dianne Feinstein could become the mayor. You couldn't have had a Dianne Feinstein if you didn't have the assassination of George Moscone across the street from where Kamala Harris went to law school. But I've already established that there's no laws in California. It's maritime. So the idea that you graduate from the Stanford Law School or Bolt Hall or the Hastings Law School or the Harvard Law School, where allegedly, Alan Dershowitz is a lecturer, or you went to the Yale Law School where Alan Dershowitz allegedly graduated from, or the whole thing's preposterous. There's no laws. And if you ever listen to Alan Dershowitz on television, you quickly realize this guy hasn't got a clue what the United States Constitution stands for or what the Bill of Rights are. He has no idea whatsoever. He's still reliving the OJ case. So the thing is that there's no laws. Everything's Admiralty Maritime military law. That's the law that the bankers prefer. The bankers sponsor this freak show. It's what it is. It's a freak show. It's a military freak show. And that's my point. So first we had the 21 missions that entered and infiltrated California. At that time, in 1769, this is before the so-called American Revolution, divorce from the Bank of London and King George, right? Before we had that, we had Father Junipero Serra setting up shop in San Diego. And we had 300,000 indigenous native people of California. And they had over 200 tribal orders. We had a nation of highly democratic, highly diverse, non-centralized, non-militarized native people in California, which included the Miwok tribe and the Ohlone, and people that used to use the property where Stanford University stole 8,000 acres that belongs to the native people, and the property where the Miwok Skywalker Ranch, renamed Ewok, where George Lucas has the Skywalker Ranch, 4,700 acres, Or the Bohemian Grove pirated 2,700 acres in Sonoma County. Or where in Mendocino County, the Greenfield Ranch of 5,200 acres was spirited away from the native people. Mendocino County, CIA County. Sonoma County, CIA County. Marin County, CIA County. It's not just home to George Lucas's land grant ranch. It's home to Bill Graham atop Corte Madera on Camino Alta. He had a military complex home that looked down on Tiburon, you know, where Robin Williams lived with his military indoctrinated father in Tiburon. Ford Motor Company, Lincoln Division. That's Robin Williams' legacy. His father was plugged into Chicago, Illinois, and Detroit in the Ford Motor Company, which is a military contractor, right? And Robin Williams was not a rags to riches story. He was already wealthy. They were plugged into the Illuminati status, and it's just that they found a home for Robin in the fake comedy business, where you steal other people's jokes and you get television contracts. That's what Robin Williams was. I mean, there would be no Robin Williams had there not been his connection and connection in Hollywood and his connection with taking Jonathan Winter's act and then stealing jokes down at the Comedy Store. I mean, Sam Kinison could, you know, run circles around Robin Williams, okay? Just run circles around him. But Sam Kinison didn't have the connections, did not have the Hollywood connections that Robin Williams had. So that's really the only difference. Sam Kinison could have been, you know, much higher level, but he was not chosen, right? You can look at Bob Saget. I mean, why did he ever get a career in comedy? He's not funny at all. Dr. Demento, he's not funny. Ellen DeGeneres used to be funny. She was funny when she was 19 and 20 and 21 years old. She was really funny. She's completely unfunny now. She's totally woke. She's a lesbian, you know, joke, along with Rachel Maddow, a Jewish girl who's very Catholic. Rachel Maddow is like Dianne Feinstein. They're Jewish, but they are cloaked in a Catholic tradition. They're Jews in the Catholic Church. Rachel Maddow, check it out. Her grandmother is a Jewish lady. So they just hiding in plain view, people. So I'm just pointing it out. It's true. It's a true story. I'm not making this stuff up. Go check it out. I did an interview with Sean Stone, and he kept hammering me away for the cremation of care ceremony at the Bohemian Grove, which I've been to the Bohemian Grove, but I have never attended the cremation of care ceremony. These things take place in the last 2 weeks of July every summer. At least before COVID, they used to have what's called the Hijinks dinner party in San Francisco at 624 Taylor Street near the Olympic Club, near Union Square, below the Masonic Auditorium, which is on Nob Hill, which is where the University Club is, where the Pacific Union Club is, it's where the Fairmont Hotel is, the Mark Hopkins Hotel. Like I said, the Masonic Auditorium is. That's where the Bohemian Club is, just a few blocks down the hill from that. And they have a dungeon, basement, windowless, with an orchestra pit and a stage. And they have reclining theater chairs. Went to a cocktail there. Personally met George Shultz, who, as you know, was a fellow at the Stanford University campus, Hoover Institute, and had free housing, or I'm assuming it's free. It's provisional housing. I mean, George Shultz is in charge of all CIA worldwide housing throughout the world, just like he is for all the Bechtel employees, which is a military contractor throughout the world, an international contractor, like Browner Root is, which now is part of Halliburton. But the thing is that wherever military contractors go, CIA operatives go. They go together, like Siamese twins. So when I say that George Shultz died on the Stanford campus, the campus where Sam Bankman Fried was born, that's not a coincidence. Not at all. It's a CIA encampment. That property belonged to the Ohlone Indians, okay? And they got run off their land, and Agenda 21 disappeared. That's what that was. When you were baptized into one of these Franciscan missions for Father Junipero Serra, you were conscripted into slave labor on the farm, the farming activities and orchard growing and vineyard properties that surrounded the missions, which are military outposts into this new frontier that was going to be colonialized, colonial, imperial takeover of Alta California with 21 mission systems. And today we have 32 military institutions, which are either United States military Marines, United States Navy, United States Air Force, United States Army, United States Coast Guard. I'm including the Coast Guard in the military because they're part of the same policies. They all have the same masking policies. They have the same, vax policies. They have the same command and control compartmentalization using divisions and department policies, as do all the banks. So it is not a surprise that every corporation in America that's in the Fortune 500, the publicly traded corporations, and all the private hedge funds that do business with the banks, and all the private endowment firms that do business with the banks as part of their money private banking facility apparatuses, all of those and all of the military follow one maritime law policy for masking, cult ritual, obedience, secrecy, is paramount. And that's military. That's the point of today's video, is that every direction you turn, whether it's look up at the sky to see if it's a chemtrail day, like yesterday was a major chemtrail day, and a week ago was a world record chemtrail day. Okay, just look up at the sky every day. You should see blue skies or you should see rain clouds. But you should never see tic-tac-toe patterns with aluminum oxide, 6 to 8 miles long, slowly sinking back to Earth or going where the wind takes it, to aluminum oxide, our world, to tune on, to tune in, turn on, and drop out using the 5G mesh radio frequencies. Because all those aluminum particles definitely pick up signaling from 5G apparatuses. All right? I'm not pretending to know all of the applications. I only know about linguistics and applied linguistics, which is the weaponization of liar, liar, pants on fire, using fancy vocabulary words and a lexicon of terms which exist within certain communities within our society to break society down using critical race theory, CRT, critical religion theory, critical whatever theory, causes people to not unite. Even though we have a constitutional right for free assembly, that is really no longer tolerated in our society. Okay? Freedom of speech is not tolerated in our society. Right? Critical thinking is not really tolerated in our society because you're a conspiracy theorist if you're a critical thinker. But I'm here to tell you, in the words of a #1 top scientist for the Department of Energy, Lawrence Livermore Weapons Lab, told me everything is a conspiracy. 100%. That includes 9/11. That includes the Sharon Tate murder was a conspiracy. Abigail Folger's human sacrifice, that was a conspiracy. Natalie Wood's death in Santa Catalina Island estuary, that was a conspiracy. William Holden, the best man for Ronald Reagan, second marriage, his death was a conspiracy. In other words, there's more than one person who knows. There's more than one person that knows about murder and mayhem. In other words, it's a group of people that plan, sponsor, manage, and execute these acts, these felonious acts, whether it's chemtrail dumping, whether it's bayonet murder, whether it's exploding an empty building like they did at 9/11. I mean, most of those buildings were empty. That's why the casualties were so low. 2,900 dead people is nothing for a population of 8 billion. It's nothing. And, I mean, talk about the My Lai massacre. That's 504 people. Talk about the Jonestown CIA operation in French Guiana. That's 906 dead people estimate. Can't really get a hard number on that. And we can talk about dropping firebombing Japan or firebombing Germany. Because I'm not sure we dropped a hydrogen bomb over Nagasaki, but we sure firebombed the heck out of many cities in Japan, killing thousands of people, which would have been a much higher number than 9/11 killed in Manhattan or killed in the Pentagon missile attack, or whatever that was, hoaxer attack. 200 security cameras, and we can't get film from more than one. All right, I have attended the hijinks evening where I met George Shultz. And hijinks, just the word hijinks has multiple messages. So I think the most common message of hijinks night, which is like a cocktail party and frivolity and music, people think of jollification, they think of boisterous celebrations, and that's the mood that was received by me when I went to the hijinks night, which started out with cocktails with Caspar Weinberger, Harvard alum, and George Shultz, Princeton alum, but then became part of the Stanford apparatus. We also think of hijinks as pranks and prankish behavior, pulling pranks on people. But it also has another meaning known as quick directional changes. So in the bicycle parlance, lexicon of terms, juking is the word we use instead of hijinks. We use juking. In other words, when you're coming down to a finish of a bike race and you're not alone, if you're not alone by yourself, then you've got to at least defeat one or more other people that you come to the line with. And you practice juking, which is the art of faking left and going right, or faking left and going left, or faking right and going right. In other words, you try to fool the people who are going to get a jump on you from behind you into jumping into a trap. In other words, if they jump to inside of you, you pinch them out. So they have to let up on their power, and then they lose their momentum, and then you can beat them. You can defeat them. Or if you make them juke to above you, then they have a longer distance to get around you, and you can push them wide to make them go further up track, which makes them lose momentum, and you can defeat them. So the idea is to take, when you're under pursuit, when you're under a pursuit situation, you need to be mindful to juke your competition so you're not defeated. That's a military term, it's a sporting term, it's a banking term. It's a term that Tom Weisel of Tom Weisel Partners and Montgomery Securities would understand extremely well, because he practiced it in his Stanford lifestyle, his Harvard MBA, his securities, so-called securities. I laugh at that. There's nothing secure about debenture bonds on Wall Street. They're completely and utterly insecure. So if you build a company like Montgomery Securities, which was a client of my firm, that's an oxymoron, because there's nothing secure about your trading devices. The whole thing is it's a meta universe. Anyway, I bring Tom Weisel up because he is CIA indoctrinated through Stanford University and Harvard MBA, and also Wall Street and the securities market, and also, venture capitalist. He was thrown a few bones to, like Sequoia Capital and KKR got to do some venture capital work, right? I mean, Sequoia is the granddaddy. They brought you Apple, they brought you Cisco, they brought you LSI Logic, they brought you Zoom, Google. It's a pretty impressive list at Sequoia Capital. They brought you FTX, right? And they brought you Melissa Ellison, right? Melissa Ellison is an alumni with Tom Weisel. She's an alumni with Dianne Feinstein. She's an alumni with Rachel Maddow. She's an alumni of Elizabeth Holmes, a fraudulent felon. Stanford University graduates felonious people, right? I mean, do you think that Elizabeth Holmes is innocent? Do you think that Caroline Ellison is innocent of crypto fraud? Do you think that Sam Bankman-Fried is innocent of crypto fraud? I mean, they're scapegoats. Elizabeth Holmes is a scapegoat. She's a child. These are children. The puppet masters, on Sand Hill Road, they're running the strings, right? And Marin County is heavy concentration of CIA, and nothing drilled that into my head quicker than we rolled out those fake, phony face diapers. My God, I'd never seen so many obedient Marin County people. What a bunch of sissies. I mean, Marin County is the home of cowards. That is where Bill Graham was murdered. He was murdered in Sonoma County, 10 minutes away from his Corte Madera palace. But he never would have had that palace had he not conducted all those CIA operations in Haight-Ashbury. next door to the Presidio Army Base, working closely with Sharon Tate's father, Paul Tate, and working closely with Abigail Folger's mother, Enos Mejia, and working with Timothy Leary, the LSD maven from Harvard and University of California, Berkeley. This is the home for Hunter S. Thompson, Ken Kesey. This is the home for the Amphetamines Research Project. This is the home for the Haight-Ashbury Project, home of Midnight Climax, dosing Johns of prostitutes with LSD and videotaping it. This is the home of CIA chaos. This is the home of tune in, turn on, drop out. And at the exact same time that Timothy Leary is performing these felonious acts in San Francisco, the Maharishi is doing it in London, England, with the Beatles. Remember the Maharishi? Oh, yeah. All right, he's British intelligence, right? And he's university graduated in the same way that Fidel Castro was, in the same exact way that Timothy Leary was. I mean, Timothy Leary had a PhD in psychology from the University of California, Berkeley. He monkeyed around with Ted Kaczynski's brain at Harvard University. So you're talking about Tom Weisel, you're talking about many of the managing directors on Sand Hill Road went to Harvard and got MBAs at Stanford, or they went to Stanford and got MBAs from Harvard. I mean, it's a long list of investment private bankers who attended Harvard and Stanford University, which would include Tom Weisel. All right. And, Columbia University is in there too. But the primary players are Stanford and Harvard. Those have the most on their list. And you even got George Shultz in there, and he went to Princeton, but he has to chummy up to the Stanford scions. And I personally saw that with my own eyes, because there would be no Stanford University without the scions. And the scions all came after Father Junipero Serra's 21 missions and the land grants that followed that, and the military's troops that were then followed the infiltration by night, armies by day concept that John Kennedy warned us about. That was performed in California. And then, of course, we had to have a fake war called the Mexican-American War, which was ginned up for, 18-month war so that we could cancel out the Spanish land grants and then hold a tribunal where land grants were reissued to the American, so-called American military nobility class. And that is where they created the Santa Margarita Land Trust, and that is where they created the land trust that created Greenfield Ranch in Mendocino County and created much of the property that you see in so-called Marin County. And that is where the scions collect rent. They first collected rent for cattle ranching and farming, and then they rented out their properties to the United States Navy and the Marines. And these 32 military bases, I'll run down the list for you to give you a sense of where they're all located out in the Mojave Desert and in close proximity to China Lake and Edwards Air Force Base, Nellis, Las Vegas. They pay rent on those properties, and that rent goes into a land trust, and those land trusts belong to scions, and the scions they do not appear on television, they do not appear in the media. But if you ever go to the Bohemian Club or the Bohemian Grove, which is not a secret society, it's a semi-secret society. It's a semi-secret society. See, because we know it exists, and I've personally been to their clubhouse. I am not allowed to go to secret society. I did go to a clubhouse that has a moniker on front of it, constructed of bronze, by an artist by the name of Joe Mora. In August 15th, 1919, this bronze boss was assembled. It's a concept of an owl with a spider in its claws. The caption reads, "Weaving spiders come not here." And the spider represents, man's entanglement of family and obligations and loyalty. Because you quickly learn in these semi-secret societies and passive-aggressive behavior at the corporations, which are all military secret society cults, you realize that treachery and betrayal are an essential element of command and control. So the paradox of my today's talk, and then I'll cut it off, the paradox is that if you're a CEO like Jamie Dimon is of Chase Manhattan Bank, or you're the president of the World Bank like Tom Clausen was, or Robert McNamara was, or Christine Lagarde is the chairman of the IMF, you are so disposable, you can be thrown under the bus at any time. That's the joke. So if you make $30 to $100 million a year and you think you're a hot stuff private banker like Doug Leone does, he amassed $6.1 billion in 34 years. So he's used to making $260 million a year pre-tax. That's an average salary for a knucklehead who created FTX cryptocurrency. He created it. Don Valentine was alive when FTX was created. Don Valentine, who went bye-bye when Aaron Valente went bye-bye, her last meeting at 2500 Sand Hill Road. Don Valentine has an office at 2800 Sand Hill Road. You think that's a coincidence that Sam Bankman's parents are at the Stanford Law School nearby? That he's born on that campus? That George Shultz died on that campus? That Aaron Valente was murdered on Sand Hill Road? That Doug Leone were $6 billion and he didn't found the company? That an employee could be worth $6 billion? You think that could be done through honest hard work? No way. All right, so just to drive home my point that California is a military complex dominated by maritime law, and that the Stanford Law School and the Hastings Law School and the Berkeley Law School is a complete and utter mendacity, and they should be dismantled and closed, and all the tuition that they've charged be refunded to all their victims of their fraudulent crimes. Since we operate under maritime law, there's no reason to study the Constitution or the law of the land. It doesn't exist in real life. Not in my lifetime. And apparently not in the lifetime of the Miwoks. And do you know that George Lucas on the Skywalker Ranch, which is 4,700 acres, he built a lake, an artificial lake that he calls Ewok Lake. Ewok. But it was the Miwoks who used to matriculate on that land. The Miwoks. That's spelled M-I-W-O-K. The Miwoks. And there's a Miwok Park in the city of Novato, which is in close proximity to the George Lucas Ranch. I mean, it's a 10-minute drive in a car, and it's very clearly understood. They have a teepee tent there that the Miwoks used to live in, and it's called Miwok. But on the Skywalker Ranch, which is a CIA ranch, they renamed it Ewok to sort of laugh in the faces of the native people of California. They're mocking them, as Star Wars did. Star Wars, a Hollywood film about mocking the native people of California, Alta California, and they used the Armstrong Woods property to feature the Redwood Forest Grove. I wonder why they didn't use the Bohemian Grove. It's a larger grove, and it's nearby Armstrong Woods, but for whatever reason, I'm told they used Armstrong Woods. It's possible they used the Bohemian Grove. I can't tell the difference. One redwood tree looks the same as another. So, everywhere from near Stanford University, we have the Ames Research Center, Moffett Field, which is Navy, Air Force Base, NASA research, close proximity to, it's in Mountain View, but that's close proximity to Palo Alto and close to where Aaron Valente worked at Summit Partners on Middlefield Road. Middlefield was a Army Air Force base. That's where Stanford Research Institute is located, off Middlefield Road in Menlo Park, which is kind of east Palo Alto. There are 32 military bases in California today. Beale Air Force Base in Marysville, which is also known as Olivehurst. And there they have the Paved Pause project, and that is where they did the SR-71 and U-2 spy plane program. I know a lot about that air base. I'm not going to get into that. We have Edwards Air Force Base, which is located in Lancaster, California, which is near Palmdale, which is where Lockheed and General Dynamics have a monster airport facility, which is not on this list. In other words, there's private military contractors who have air bases that military planes can and do land for whatever reason, and that is not part of this list. Okay, I'm telling you that we have corporate-owned airports throughout California that are not on the list I'm giving you. Los Angeles Air Force Base, El Segundo, California. That's an Air Force base. Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield, California. That's in close proximity to the first 3 Zodiac attacks, are in close proximity to Travis Air Force Base. And that's probably where the aluminum oxide chemtrails are being operated out of for the San Francisco Bay Area. There are other places they can be run out of, but Travis is the obvious place for aluminum chemtrails, would be Travis Air Force Base. There's Vandenberg Air Force Base in Lompoc, California. That's close to Solvang. That's close to Los Olivos, where Fess Parker had a nice vineyard property near Lompoc. There's, of course, 3 federal prison facilities on the Vandenberg Air Force Base. At most of these military bases, there are prison facilities, people, federal prisons. That's just a little footnote. There's March Air Force Base in Riverside, California. That was where the alleged first Zodiac attack happened, but it's not an official Zodiac attack. That's like 8 miles from where I think Sherry Joe Bates was murdered, near March Air Force Base. All right. And then we have McClellan Air Force Base in Sacramento. We have Fort Irwin Army Base in Barstow, California. That's in the desert. We have the Presidio of Monterey. We used to have Fort Ord. We don't have Fort Ord anymore, but we do have the Language Warfare Center, aka Applied Linguistics. That's where Abigail Folger and Patricia Hearst and Dakota Johnson all went to school, in close proximity to the Presidio of Monterey. We have Fort Hunter Liggett, which I know a lot about that place. That is the least visited Father Junipero Serra mission in the 21 chain, and there's a reason for that. It's very hard to get to. I've only been there 2 times in my entire life. It's a fascinating place. That is home to William Randolph Hearst's horse ranching property, and the Hearst Castle and the Esalen Institute are all in close proximity to Fort Hunter Liggett. There's Camp Parks, which is a federal prison and also an Army base in Dublin, California. That's near the Lawrence Livermore Weapons Laboratory, which I do not have on this list. We have Camp Hahn Army Base, and again, Riverside County. That's number 2 for Riverside. Camp Roberts Army Base in Monterey County, but it's close to Paso Robles, and it's in close proximity to King City, also close to Hunter Liggett, Fort Hunter Liggett Army Base. We have Camp San Luis Obispo Army Base. That is where Charlie Watson was kept, in close proximity to the men's colony. He's the innocent of murdering Sharon Tate, but convicted of murdering Sharon Tate when he was innocent. He's had virtually a life imprisonment sentence, and he's innocent. Sierra Army Depot Base in Hurlong. I don't even know where that is. That's how I've been to most of these places, but I haven't been there. I don't know where Hurlong, California is. Then we have the ISC Alameda Coast Air Base in Alameda, next to the Port of Oakland. We used to have the Navy Air Force Base in Alameda. That's been decommissioned, so that's gone, not on the list. But we have the Coast Guard in Alameda. We have the Trayson Petaluma Coast Air Force. I know people that work there. That's in Sonoma County, in close proximity to the George Lucas Skywalker Ranch. It's not very far, Chiles Valley. And it's in close proximity to the Bohemian Club also. Bohemian Grove. Los Alamitos Joint Force Base. That's Army, Air Force, and Navy. That's basically Long Beach. That's where Tiger Woods learned to play golf, because Tiger Woods' father was in black operations in Vietnam, and that's how he met his Thailand wife. Tiger Woods' mother was through black ops. And Los Alamitos is where they have a horse racing track where Lino LaBianca used to bet on horses there and race horses at Los Alamitos. Lino LaBianca was trained as a military policeman at San Pedro, Fort MacArthur, which is next door to Los Alamitos. You know, it's like 6 miles away. Anyway, that's the Port of Long Beach. That's a CIA high concentration area. That's why that air base is there. The Los Alamitos Joint Forces Base. San Joaquin Depot, San Joaquin County, California. We've got the depot. That means logistics. We have the Barstow Marine Corps Base in Barstow, California. We have Camp Pendleton, which 2/3 of that pays rent to the Santa Margarita Land Trust, and the other third goes to another land trust. So the Navy doesn't own their real estate. They rent it from scions. Then we have the Marine Base that is stationed in San Diego, next to the United States Navy. We have the MCRD San Diego Marine Corps Base in San Diego, which is augmenting the MCAS Miramar Air Base in San Diego, featured in the film with Tom Hanks, which was called Top Gun. We have 29 Palms Marine Corps Base, and they have the Tortoise Casino that goes with that in 29 Palms. I know a lot about that. I actually thought they had a tortoise museum there. I was wrong about that. They don't. We have Pickle Meadows Marine Corps Base military mountain training. We have Camp Pendleton Taliga, which is part of San Diego. We have the NAS China Lake Navy facility. That's one I want to know more about. That's where Charlie Manson was sent the last 2 weeks of his freedom. He was sent to China Lake and to where the aluminum oxide comes out of the ground at the Meyer Ranch, aka Barker Ranch mining facility. That's where the so-called Manson family were rounded up, is at CIA military China Lake. It's not an accident. We have the Naval Base Coronado Island. That is where, of course, Governor Ron DeSantis knows about that. Then we have the NAS Lenore Navy Base. That's where Anne Heche had her, breakup bender weekend in Lenore, near Harris Cattle Ranch off Highway 33. That's in close proximity to the Navy Air Base. Who knew that that's where Anne Heche would have her lesbian breakup bender weekend with Ellen DeGeneres, was next to a Navy Air Base. Anyway, I guess you get the picture. We got submarine bases. We got Port Magoo near Malibu Colony. We got Port Hueneme and Oxnard, Ventura. On and on and on. There's 32. And I'm telling you, the list used to be more like 50. But they've decommissioned some. And you've got Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, which was really created in 1941. That's when Las Vegas casinos took off, was 1941. Atlantic City didn't take off till 1978 for casinos. But Las Vegas was a military base first, and then a casino money laundering facility second. Like bang, bang, real quick. China Lake was created at the exact same time that Nellis was, 1941. That's when Laurel Canyon was basically militarized, 1941, with Lookout Mountain Road and the Walt Disney Air Force Joint Facility at 8935 Wonderland Avenue, where Frank Zappa lived close to, and Timothy Leary had a home, and Charles Watson, the killer of Sharon Tate, allegedly, he lived across the street from the Disney studios, 5 studios, 100,000 square feet underground secret lair facility, constructed in 1940, 39, 40, 41. The exact same time they built the Cielo Drive murder scene for Sharon Tate, the Disney Air Force facilities was being constructed at the exact same time. These are not coincidences at all. They're all part of a military operation that's bank sponsored, military supervised, and then scapegoats like Charlie Manson and scapegoats like Sam Bankman-Fried and like Caroline Ellison and like Elizabeth Holmes of Stanford University. And I'm going to throw Rachel Maddow on the list. She looks a lot like a Big Bird scapegoat to me. So don't be surprised if you hear that Rachel Maddow gets thrown under the bus someday with a lesbian scandal that we haven't heard of yet. Don't be surprised, because that's what she is. She's being sheep-dipped and groomed for scapegoat status. There is no way they're going to have a Rachel Maddow appear at the cremation of care ceremony or hijinks night at 624 Taylor Street. There is zero chance Rachel Maddow is going to appear at the Bohemian Club. There is no chance that is going to happen. I personally guarantee that. I just, based on, manly men talk. That's what they call it. You cannot be a manly man with women around. Even lesbian women, they don't count either. All right, that's my talk for today. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to put a link below to my cult video, which Google allows, but BitChute will not allow. And I'm going to let you go and check it out for yourself for more detail. Thanks for watching, and please have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.